22nd Amendment, passed by Congress March 21st, 1947, ratified February 27th, 1951. No person shall be elected to the office of the president more than twice, and no person who has held the office of president or acted as president for more than 2 years of a term to which some other person was elected president shall be elected to the office of the president more than once. But this article shall not apply to any person holding the office of president when this article was proposed by the Congress, and shall not prevent any person who may be holding the office of president or acting as president during the term within which this article becomes operative from holding the office of president or acting as president during the remainder of such term. So this is the FDR amendment. George Washington became president because everybody told him that if he didn't accept the office, then it would be seen as him not accepting the Constitution and not thinking it was a good system of government, and it would be bad news for the country. And he said, okay, and he became president. And he wanted to go home after the first term, and they said, no, you got to do a second just to prove it. And so he said, okay. And after the second term, he said, I'm done, I'm going home. And that held as tradition for about 150 years. Every president served 2 terms, maximum.
But actually, it's a good thing he did do that because he died a year or two later.
Yeah, he got to be home when he died, and he got to spend some time alone at home, and I'm sure that made him very happy.
I mean, I would say that also been the first president to die in office too. Then,
yeah, that would have been messy if it had been George Washington as the first president to die in. Yeah, so there are a lot of good reasons that he limited himself to 2 terms. When Theodore Roosevelt ran third party in the Bull Moose Party, the big shock was not that he was running third party. It was that he had been president during 2 terms. He had been appointed president upon the assassination of McKinley, and then he ran for office and served a term on his own. And so running for a 3rd term was basically unprecedented.
Scandalous.
Yeah. And I'm looking up now how much of McKinley's term he served. He became president 1901. So yeah, so he served practically a full term for McKinley. So under this amendment, he would not have been eligible for another term. Whole thing is all those pesky Roosevelts.
Yeah. So Truman could have run again under this.
Yeah, Truman was exempt from this amendment. He lost to Eisenhower, so it didn't end up mattering. But Truman was exempt. This amendment specifically did not apply to Harry S. Truman and applied to everyone else.
Did he even run again? Did he even run that year?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Let me double check, but I'm pretty sure. Harry S. Truman with the period, even though it shouldn't be there. Let's see. He became president in 1945. So that was...
And then in 1948, there's a famous Dewey, the famous newspaper thing.
Yeah. Okay, no, he didn't run but he was old and he wasn't doing well in the polls. So that was Adlai Stevenson, who
The Democratic ticket.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, so Truman didn't actually run because he just wasn't going to win, and he knew it.
But he could have, if he did, he could have.
He could have, and if he could have won, then he could have held office even under the 22nd Amendment, because the 22nd Amendment did not apply to Truman.
So everyone from Eisenhower and beyond, 2 terms, that's it. Maybe 10 if you're vice president.
Yeah.
And now you mentioned this before, I think for earlier in the thing, that you do not agree with this amendment.
I'm sorry. Say again?
You mentioned this before earlier in the series that you do not agree with this amendment.
I don't agree with the amendment. I don't have any problem with somebody running as often as they want to and holding the office as much as they want to if they can get enough people to agree to elect them. I think that a bad president is a bad president no matter how many terms they serve, and a good president is a good president no matter how many terms they serve. It's not terms that make somebody good or bad. We see term limits as kind of a get out of jail free card. Like, they'll fix all of our problems if we just put term limits in place.
Now, do you think this was? Do you think? I don't know if FDR wasn't one, but do you think this was because they wanted to avoid like dictators and stuff?
Oh, absolutely. The thing is a lot of people had been holding office in Europe in the years leading up to World War II, who were now dictators.
Yeah, they got elected. Like Hitler got elected, but then he's like,
yeah. How elected Hitler was is kind of complicated, but Hitler had been elected, Mussolini had been elected, and then FDR was elected 4 times. And I've always kind of understood why FDR did that, because
at first was like, I gotta continue my New
Deal policies,
and then it was, oh, World War II is happening. I gotta keep us out. Now I gotta keep us in.
In 1940, the United States was heavily isolationist, and FDR must have felt like the only person who understood that the United States was going to end up in World War II whether they wanted to or not. So he ran for office because he wanted somebody in office who knew what was happening and was able to prepare us. And then in 1944, even though he was in very poor health by that point, we were in the middle of a war, and he wouldn't have wanted to turn over the government to someone else, especially because he knew about the atom bomb project. He knew all about the Manhattan Project, so he didn't want to turn that over to someone else.
Which he ended up doing anyways.
And so he ran, and yeah, he ended up having to turn it over to Truman on the grounds of dying, but he didn't choose to do that. I will say that I'm counting on the 22nd Amendment to still be in place in 4 years. Because, well, I believe this country can survive 2 terms, I don't believe it could survive 3. But I'm going to emphasize that that's 2 terms or 3 terms of someone I don't want as president in the first place.
Yeah, because I do not think we have the Congress to pass the amendment, because you need a 2/3 majority.
It needs a 2/3 majority, and everyone who would go to pass it would know why we were passing it. Repealing the 22nd Amendment would be installing a dictatorship. That is why it would currently pass. And just because I agree with a repeal in principle doesn't mean that I want it repealed at this time. Because I know what the effect of repealing this amendment would be at this time. And I'm already scared enough.
Oh, well, unlike the last amendment, this one took a while to pass. Get ratified.
Yeah. Unlike most amendments, this one took a few years. Most of the amendments we see, it takes a year or two at most. And this is not the record holder. We'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of close. I mean, not in terms of sheer number of years it took, but it is, if it's not in the second place, it's in about the third or fourth place. This is one of the longest amendments it took to pass. And I don't honestly know why that is. I think it was because a lot of people feel the way I do. That a bad president is a bad president notwithstanding. And a good president is a good president notwithstanding. And a term limit isn't going to change that.
I guess to make sure the bad president doesn't be a bad president for 30 years.
Yeah.
Because, well, technically, yeah, 35, 70, 75, 65. If you start in 35, it can be to 65, 30 years.
Yeah. And that's not even all that old. I mean, being president ages you. So I would be surprised if somebody lived long enough to be a president for 30 odd years simply because that's a rough job if you actually do the job. But it did take longer. And I'm also wondering how much of it is people didn't see it as urgent. A lot of the amendments were important to people on a personal level. Both passing and repealing prohibition, granting women the vote. These are very personal amendments. The 22nd Amendment applies to practically nobody in the entire country on a personal level. There are, 4 people alive in the United States today to whom the 22nd Amendment has ever personally applied. 5. 5 people. But that's 5 people out of so many millions.
Yeah, and the earliest one became president in 92.
Yeah. And it was until very recently 6. We miss you, Jimmy.
93.
Yeah. He was elected in 92, became president in 93. And I think he could have won in 2000. I think Bush the Younger probably could have won in 2008. I think he still had enough popularity that if he'd run, people would have voted for him. I definitely think Obama could have won a third term if he'd run. The last 2, it gets all weird and complicated. But it's kind of hard to feel passionate about the 22nd Amendment. Even though a lot of people are very strongly pro-term limit. A lot of people believe that we need term limits to fix all of our problems in government. Those people will also, probably 90% of the time, vote for their incumbent, given the opportunity. we have a weird sense about terms and things in the United States. And so we believe that term limits will solve problems, but at the same time, it's not the most important thing in our day-to-day life, which is why there's still no term limits for people in Congress.
I think the reason people say is because they want, what's it called, fresh blood?
Yeah. And I do get that, given, the average... Oh, I'm going to look this up because now I'm curious. Average length of congressional service. Let's see. The average years of service for members elected to the current Congress is 8.5 years. It's 11.2 years for the Senate.
Well, obviously the Senate's longer anyways.
Yeah. I mean, as I've said, my senators have both been the only senators I've ever voted for because I never quite managed to vote as a California resident, and both of my senators have been senators as long as I've been in Washington, and I've been in Washington since the 90s. I love that the chart that I found about this starts with everybody had 0 years of experience as a congressperson in 1789. Like, no kidding!
Well, I guess unless they were in the quote Articles of Confederation Congress.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure most of them had been in the Congressional Congress, the Continental Congress, but that doesn't count for purposes of this chart. Average service tenure in the 18th century Congresses, 1st through 6th, is artificially constrained by the inability of anyone to have begun his service prior to the first Congress. It says. But the longest serving members of Congress are Harold Rogers and Christopher Smith, who have each served in Congress for 42 years.
So they started back when we were babies, and now they're still there.
Yeah. Chuck Grassley, also 42 years in the Senate.
Yeah, I would have been 3 then.
I would have been 6. And I'm going to check. Harold Rogers is from Kentucky. He is a Republican. And Christopher Smith, if I can highlight his entire name, thank you, is from, well, he looks really young. He's from New Jersey. And are you going to tell me? No, you're going to tell me about a director. He is also a Republican.
Okay, this makes a good point out. Why did they specifically do this for the president but not the Congress?
Frankly, I think it's because a lot of them didn't want to lose their jobs.
Makes sense.
Yeah, no, it's really funny to me because it's the Republicans who make a big fuss about term limits most of the time, but the 3 longest serving members of the current Congress are all Republicans. And I think the original congressman who passed this amendment looked at it, and it was mostly men. There were a couple of women in the Congress at the time, I think, but it was mostly men. when I say a couple, I mean that literally. There might have been one or two. But these men looked at it and were like, well, we could pass term limits for ourselves, but we don't want to. So one of the reasons I'm opposed to term limits is, you know what happens to a lot of these members of Congress when they stop being in Congress is, right?
Lobbyists.
Really highly paid lobbyists. They make more as a lobbyist than they do as a member of Congress. And if you limit how long members of Congress can serve, they're just going to go make the big bucks as a lobbyist, and they're still going to control things. But instead of theoretically controlling things on the behalf of the people, they're going to be controlling things on the behalf of whoever can afford to pay for them. That's why term limits are not a solution. Most presidents, I'm going to emphasize the most part, who leave office have kind of stepped into an elder statesman role. Jimmy Carter of sainted memory did a lot of good as an ex-president. I will die on the hill that he's our country's greatest ex-president. He spent a week every year, as long as he physically could, building houses for Habitat for Humanity. Not fundraising, not just being a presence, building houses. And I'll tell you, I heard a great story during his funeral. He was spending his week with a bunch of people, and because Jimmy Carter was A, old, and B, an ex-president, he got a hotel room wherever they were going to build houses. And all of the other volunteers he brought with him would sleep, in a church community hall or whatever. And he found out that a couple of the volunteers in his group were on their honeymoon. They were spending their honeymoon building houses for Habitat for Humanity with Jimmy Carter. And he and Rosalind gave them their hotel room and let the newlyweds have the hotel room. And Jimmy Carter bunked down on the floor with everybody else.
Did he still have the Secret Service as ex-president?
I believe so. Let me look into that, because I know that that's changed over the years. Frequently asked questions about us. Thanks, Secret Service. See, the Obama daughters don't get protection anymore because it's until age 16 in their lifetime, unless they decline protection, says the Secret Service. So, unless he was declining protection, yes, he still had Secret Service agents.
I don't know if they helped Bill too.
I doubt it, but it'd be kind of cool if they did. I love Jimmy Carter. He was an example of doing good even when you didn't have to get anyone's good wishes.
Yeah, I was born under his presidency.
I was born about 6 weeks before his presidency. I could do the math and figure out exactly, because obviously his term